Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Hands on SAP Dev with me, DJ Q Macro. I finally got that phrase after how many years I've been doing this now. I finally got that phrase. It seems to sort of roll off the tongue, comfortably now. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining this last episode in the Back to Basics on OData series, wrapping up. Bit of a vague title really, but we're going to cover a few bits and pieces. I think this is really the, where we should finish off OData. I'm also thinking, what else should we do a Back to Basics series on? So I'd love to hear from you any ideas that you have. I was thinking maybe even of even doing things like, how to use curl properly, curl from the command line, the HTTP command line client. A lot of people use Postman's great and everything, but curl is brilliant because it's as powerful, if not more powerful than Postman, and you can script with it as well. Anyway, that's just an example. I might do some OAuth stuff. But let me know what you think. Anyway, welcome to everybody. Welcome to Martin. Welcome to Santiago. Santiago. I've had too much coffee already. And welcome to Jodel. Welcome back, Jodel. And hello from Kuala Lumpur. Welcome to KL, Jodel in KL. I would love a curl back to basics. Oh, okay, right. Well, that's good to know. Thank you, Martin. I think. I always think, well, it needs always to be directly related to an SAP product, but actually, OData has made me think, well, actually, OData is heavily used at SAP, and therefore, it's a valid thing to do. But I think curl is also heavily used, in this arena. Anyway. Where are we? I've got a slightly different screen layout. I've got my YouTube studio down there, so I'm looking at the chat down there. Auth security, basic auth, different variations of auth too. I think I might do some OAuth as well. Yeah. So thank you, Martin, for the confirmation. Anyway, what I want to cover today in wrapping up are three different little bits and pieces on OData, and I'm going to switch to the main scene already, so I can see. I'm going to just move my laptop there so I can see. Yeah, there we go. I can see what is being broadcast and everything. Pavan, hey, good morning, Pavan, and welcome. We've got. By the way, I just saw this excellent. A little tweet from Thomas Zawaesik about our 50-year anniversary, SAP's 50-year anniversary, and so I'm looking forward to watching this video and checking out the nice journey from 1972. As some folks may know, this is the 50th year of SAP. I've been doing SAP for not quite as long. But anyway, so there we go. Oh, there we go. Marvelous. So that's that. Let me just share that link with you, actually. Go and have a look at this link. Click that over there. And in fact, while I'm sharing, there's Thomas's tweet. While I'm sharing, also this week's SAP Developer News is out. There's the link to the thread. So what we're doing as well is, we're still publishing the news on YouTube, on our SAP Developers channel, of course, but we're also sort of embedding it in a chorus item here, so that, with all the details. So if you do want to discuss stuff, I'm going to give it that kudos. If you do want to discuss that, then you can ask questions and have a general discussion. And there's a slightly more appropriate place to do it. You can do it, chat a bit easier there. So check that out. So that's that. Now, what I wanted to cover, I've been sort of making notes as we've been going through this OData series on questions. And there are three questions, some questions I've closed already. So we had something from S. Shen there. That was a weird, erroneous alert. By our open source project office, program office bot. So I closed that. We've talked about dollar filter at multiple levels. We've talked about all the different things there. Unfortunately, Andrew asked a brilliant question about temporal data, but we may have to defer that to another time because of the answer from Elena. But we've got three things to cover, and the three things I want to cover. Two small ones and a slightly bigger one. So we'll do the small ones first. So a question came up. I can't remember who asked it. Maybe I asked it. I don't know. Maybe I was thinking, I wonder how that happens. So when we request an OData resource, let's do it. We've got our bookshop here. By the way, this thing here, we're all, let me just send a link to this thing. This is the repo that we've been using for our little mini series here. And in this repo, I've got actually in an annotations, where is it? In the annotations branch, a bookshop directory. And in the bookshop directory, I've taken the bookshop app that I used to use when I did a code jam on CAP, Node.js CAP in the early days. Still works, still fine, and I'm going to use this bookshop app to demonstrate some annotations as well. So if I've got that bookshop here, and if I do a CDS watch, start it up, we'll see. Okay, and I'm just showing you the bookshop here, but we'll use a different service to demonstrate what I'm about to talk about in a minute. Right. So we've got this thing here. Let's go over here and 4004. There we go. Localhost 4004. If we have a look at, for example, the books entity set resource, and of course by default with OData v4 we have the, and notice I'm using the right, being careful to use the right HTTP terms. So this is a resource, and the representation of this resource here that we have in front of us is the JSON representation of the resource, the entity set resource. Anyway, we can see the resource, we've got the data here, which is for, is that big enough by the way, is within this property called value, and it's an array of objects, okay? Each is a book, but we also get this thing here, which some of you may have wondered about. And in fact, I think if we go to north wind, let me just see if we get something here as well. Products, for example. If we go down there, yeah, there we go. There's another example of so-called metadata. We get the metadata at the top, okay, at odata.context. So anything with an @ sign is like a metadata property. And at the bottom as well, because we've got in Northwind, because we've got 77 products, and the OData Northwind service has implemented server-side paging, so it's not going to give us 70, it's going to give us, in fact, per page 20. It gives us a way to get to the next 20. And you can see using this $skip token, which is a system query option, a special system query option, a bit like skip, but it's skip token that the server generates. And that can be an opaque value that only the server really, understands. I mean, we can understand this, right? That's how we get the next one. So we did that $skip token. In fact, let's do it, right? $skip token, do that there, $skip token. We get the next load, 21, 22, 23, etc. Right? We still get 20. Anyway, the odata.next link is another piece of metadata. Okay. Now, let's have another one. In fact, I've got one here, right? What controls metadata? Yeah, there we go. So, where does the odata.context property come from? It comes from the service, and the service will implement or may implement a mechanism to allow us to control how much metadata we want, and the default level of metadata in such resources, in entity set responses, for example, is this minimal. There are 3 levels, right? And it's all described here. So if you look in the where is it? In the issues, what controls the level of metadata? I've sort of written it up here so you can have a look at it later, and it's got a reference to the part of the protocol documentation, the OData version 4.0 protocol part, And in the use of the accepts header here, okay, it refers to formats, and then it refers to the JSON format, okay, and the JSON format here, where is it? There we go. JSON format here describes how we can specify we want no metadata, we want all the metadata, or we just want a minimal amount of metadata. And the minimal amount of metadata is the default, right? And that's what we're getting. So that's what we get when we go here, for example. That's like the minimal. We can't say, well, I don't want the OData.next link, otherwise we'll never work out how to get the next page of responses, right? So even if we were to say none, in fact, let's use this example. In here, I've got some examples for you, and I've just decided to use the trip pin sample service. The trip pin sample service is a really cool service. It was a new OData v4 sample service when OData v4 was first sort of brought to the world back in 2014. So this is how old OData v4 is, how established it is. It's mature. So, it describes trips and airports and whatever, right? People. So that's that. And if we go, and let's have a look at the minimal, right? Let's click on the minimal first, and I'll show you how we can request that in a minute, right? So the minimal is, you have the OData.context, which we saw in our bookshop, and we also saw in the Northwind, and we get the next link, okay? But we also get some extra bits inside every particular object, right? We get the ID of the actual object, and we also get for extra bonus in the minimal here, an edit link, right? How have we requested the level of OData metadata? Well, you can request it in the accept header when you do an HTTP request, or you can actually add, and it's a format parameter, right? It says here, in here. Here we go. The OData metadata parameter, right, can be applied to the accept header, or you can apply it to the, where does it say? It says it here, dollar format, where is it? Requesting, oh, there we go. Yeah, so you can also request the JSON format and add the format parameter onto it in the dollar format system query options. That means you can have it in the URL, okay? You can have it in the URL. So that's why, where are we? Get rid of that one. That's why we can say, see here, the dollar format system query option is, we'd normally just put JSON, right? If we did want to put JSON, I mean, JSON is the default anyway for a v4 service, right? And you can see that it's exactly the same, which is exactly the same again as that, okay? Now, that's exactly the same. Let's go back there. Okay, we get some, the OData next link. The next link is including the system query option. That's why this is changing here, right? But we can say metadata none, right? None. And we get virtually no metadata. We don't get the edit link. We don't get the ID. We don't get the context, right? We do get the next link because otherwise we'd be stuffed. We won't be able to get to the next batch of airports. Okay, does that make sense? Jodel, v4 is old but yet new to SAP apps. It is, Jodel. Things work more cautiously in the enterprise world, right? Flatline, welcome Flatline as well. So in SAP annotations is complying with standard OData metadata, which is baked in to the OData metadata. Yes. So before OData v4, there was OData v2. There was an OData v3 as well, but we don't really talk about that. I always see that as a sort of transitional phase, and there were some metadata mechanisms that SAP used in OData v2 in the form of XML attributes. Okay, we're not talking about those. We're now talking with v4 about OData vocabularies. Okay, there are standard vocabularies, curated by OASIS, the standards body, right, that looks after OData. Vocabulary. We'll talk about these vocabularies such as core and capabilities and all sorts of things, and then other organizations can create their own vocabularies. It's a super extensible, beautiful thing, right? Which XML is really good at that sort of thing. XML lends itself to extensibility. But we'll talk about metadata. Oh, you've deleted your requests. Anyway, that was a good question, Flatline. Your message. Anyway. So anyway, let's deal with the OData metadata first, right? The actual request. We can say OData metadata equals full, give me all the metadata. And we can see here we get the context, we get the type, we get the ID, we get the edit link, but we also get types, interspersed with different things. We have a complex type here, right? Location, and so on, right? So that's how we control the level of metadata in an OData response. And why might you want to do that? Well, of course, the less noise that you can have the server send down the line to you as a client. If you don't want that noise, if you don't want that, metadata, then say, I don't want it. If you can compute it, for example, and the OData standard documentation talks about the computability of certain OData metadata properties, right? So if you're not bothered, or if you can work them out yourself, then fine, say, don't give me that stuff, I'll work it out myself. Okay, so there's an example. So hopefully that, typo, because of the typo. Oh, don't worry about that, flatline. Well, I make millions of typos. But you catch it. Yes, I did catch it. I did catch it. Anyway, so that's that. Hopefully, does that make sense in terms of what controls the level of metadata? It's quite interesting. So there we go. So that's that. I'm rushing through that one because I want to spend at least half an hour on annotations. So do we have any questions on the OData metadata format, right? Format parameter to the accept header or the system query option $ format. If not, I'll carry on. But it's all there. Let me just share that so it's also in the chat at this point in the replay. There we go. How forward-looking is that then? Okay, so that's that. I'll close that, right, because we've done that. And we'll go back to the issues. And there was a question. I don't know who asked it. And we've done this before on hands-on SAP Dev, and it's talked about a lot. But I wanted to answer the question and just generally talk through it at a really high level. And I set something up to just show you. Okay, so basically the question was, we can consume an OData service directly, but what happens if that OData service is in an on-prem based system, right? If it's on an ABAP stack running in your corporate environment, for example, then the answer, of course, as I'm sure we all know here, or most of us know, is through the SAP Cloud Connector. Oh, Marcus, welcome. Are the given metadata always the same, or can I control it via the service? You can control it via the service. I think, again, it depends on how deep into the actual service mechanism you can go. To be honest, I'm not sure how you'd control it through, for example, CAP. Whether you'd be able to add some more metadata. I mean, you can add metadata, you can add annotations to the metadata yourself in CAP, but I'm not sure you can control it too much. But if you have access to the server, if you're writing the server, generating the metadata, parts in the resource responses, then yeah, you can do that. Can I specify my own metadata in the service? I've never seen that done. I mean, theoretically, you can, because I suppose what you can do, what you could do, maybe I'm wrong here, but if you wanted to add properties to the entities in, for example, an entity set query, and those properties began with @OData.something, then you could. But it depends what sort of metadata you wanted to add. Be interested to find out what sort of metadata you would want to add. And also, I don't know where the formal metadata properties, such as OData.type, OData.nextlink, can you define your own? OData.fruit equals banana. Can you do that? I don't know. Hey, good morning, Hussein. Good morning and welcome. Good question, Marcus. I'll look into that. Yeah, okay. So anyway, there's that. That's that. So we don't need that. Let's go and talk briefly until 10 minutes about consuming an on-premise ABAP-based OData service. And what I've got here in the answer, and I thought I'd write it up just before just before the live stream, is to use Cloud Connector. And I did a code jam, a SAP Cloud Platform, or the artist formerly known as SAP Cloud Platform, i.e. SAP Business Technology Platform workflow service. I did a code jam on that, and I did it in various places, and it's now in the SAP archive organization on GitHub. So we don't maintain it anymore, but it's still got some interesting and useful stuff. I found it useful to demonstrate this. And so in exercise 3, in that archive, this talks about installing and configuring the SAP Cloud Connector, right? And this is based upon a Dockerized version of the SAP Cloud Connector, which is in turn based upon Nabi Zamani's excellent repo, SAP Cloud Connector Docker, which I really like. And I'm running, in fact, I'm running here, Docker container ls. I'm running let's make that one smaller, a Cloud Connector right now. I started it up this morning when I got back from my run, and there we go. I'm running a Cloud Connector. So we'll connect to the Cloud Connector shortly and have a look. So that's that. And so you install and configure a Cloud Connector, and I'll show you. And then you use a destination definition on SAP Business Technology Platform to point to the on-prem ABAP system, for example, and specifically, if you want to specifically to that particular OData service endpoint. And in that destination definition, you say it's not on the internet, it's actually on-prem, right? And it will work out which cloud connector, if you've got multiple cloud connectors, to connect to through this location ID. And then the tunnel will be established with the cloud connector already. It will go down the tunnel and connect. So let's just have a look at that quickly. I know, again, I apologize for those who know about this already. If you don't, then that's cool. But what we're going to do, or what I've done, is I've installed and configured a cloud connector. I'll show what the configuration I've done. I've defined a connection to an ABAP system. And I'm calling this an on-prem. I'm just using the ES5, right? I'm using the ES5 system, right? This one here, which is the standard sort of, SAP system that lots of folks use. I've got an ID there and so on. Where are we now? Yeah, okay. So I've got, and I'm pretending that the ES5 system is on-prem. It doesn't really matter where it is. The cloud connector can still connect to it. It just happens to be in the internet, right? Then once I've established that connection and defined a connection to that on-prem system and defined it as a virtual host and port, I can then start to add resource paths, URL paths, path infos that are served by the ABAP system, add that to the whitelist for that connection to say these connections to these endpoints are allowed. And then that destination points to an endpoint that's allowed. And then you can use, for example, the destination service to read the destination and the connectivity service to use the cloud connector to go and connect to it. And I've got an example app, super simple app using App Router that does that. So what have we got here? What have we got? I've got in here, here we go, let's just refresh this because I'm sure I'm going to be logged out by now. My favorite feature. In my trial, this trial sub-account, which was been using the whole time for our hands-on SAP Dev, I've got a cloud connector connected, right? And we can see the cloud connector. It's been connected since 5:30 this morning, okay, which is when I got back from my run. It's also got a back-end system, this ABAP system, exposed. The host, we're not giving away the identity of the back-end system. I've called it virtual ES5 and it's running on port 8000, which is like, the port I chose. What type of back-end system is it? It's an ABAP back-end system. And what sort of protocol are we talking about here? Are we talking about, RFC, XML RFC, or are we talking, some other protocol like mail or whatever? No, we're talking HTTP. So this is HTTP rather than, for example, this is not a distinction between HTTP or HTTPS, right? Because the connection from the cloud connector to the ABAP backend system is via HTTPS. Let's look at the definition I've got here. So I'm running my cloud connector I'm exposing this 8443, right? So if we see here 8443 Cloud Connector, login administrator, did I put as a password? Yeah, there we go. Very simple password. So now we can see I've got a connector ID. It's connected to this sub-account F78E here, which is, where is it? Where are we? Where are we? Hello. Sub-account ID F78E there, right? Don't need that anymore. Go there. And it's connected to this sub-account. And when I look at the cloud to on-premise configuration for this particular connection, I can see here that I've mapped a virtual system, virtual ES5 is the name I chose, to an actual system. Now this actual internal host could be an internal host anywhere on the network that the Cloud Connector is running, okay? So you run the Cloud Connector in your on-prem, internal network, and of course that then can see, as far as, whatever firewalls you've got set up internally and whatever sort of root restrictions, it can see anything there. Then you say, I want to, have a connection to that thing over there. And it's an ABAP system, the backend system is ABAP. I'm going to talk to it via HTTPS. Okay, so that's protected. And of course, the entire connection between the Cloud Connector and SAP Business Technology Platform is also connected as well, because this is a secure tunnel that's established by the Cloud Connector into BTP, right? Not the other way around. So that's super secure. And it's even more secure, belt and braces and, false teeth or whatever, I don't know, it's random, because unless you specify explicitly on an allow list, I said whitelist before, that's not right, allow list, unless you specify, in fact, did I put it in the, oh, there we go, let me just change that. Allow list. Let me use a proper terminology these days. Allow list. There we go. Unless you specify something on the allow list, nothing's going to get through anyway. So I've said anything coming into SAP OPU OData. Does anybody know what OPU is? Oh, hello. I guess we already. Oh, SEC used too much with Web IDE, but is there a use case with VS Code? Yes. I mean. That's a good question, Flatline, but my immediate reaction would be, well, there's a use case for any context, right? Any context that has traffic going through SAP or to SAP BTP or from SAP BTP down the Cloud Connectors to somewhere, that's a use case for Cloud Connector. What you use to consume that route, is up to you. It just so happens, I think, that maybe this is where the question arises. The Web IDE has really nice features for sort of looking at Cloud Connectors and looking at the backend systems available there, and I think the Business Application Studio does that as well. The fact that that is a feature of those particular IDEs is great, but you don't need those features because you've got everything you need here in the Cloud Connector administration panel, right? So I hope that answers your question, Flatline. Hey, Ilan, welcome, and welcome, Niels as well. Good morning. Sorry for being late. Oh, nobody's late here. You just turn up when you turn up. That's cool. So Marcus says, when will the ABAP dev container be back online on Docker? I don't know. I know that. In fact, I spoke to Julie this week. Most devs are not allowed to hook up live systems to SAP Cloud. It's pretty common to see HTTPS protocol. Oh, sorry. So Marcus, to answer your question, I honestly don't know. I know they're working on it, but my gut feel is it's going to be another few weeks yet. But they are working on it seriously. There was some issue with compliance, and the Log4j thing had some after effects as well. So they just want to make sure that everything's secure and everything's sort of above board and not going to cause you issues when you run it. Okay, so watch this space. Sorry, I can't be more specific than that because I honestly don't know. I want it back as well, to be honest. So Jodel says, it's pretty common to see HTTPS protocol use case on SAP Cloud Connector. Do you have some topics about RFC protocol as well? I don't, but we could do. So I'm going to leave. If Jodelle, if that's okay, I'm going to leave that because that's a beautiful rabbit hole to go down. I'm still a fan of the RFC protocol, right? Because I'm a very old person. But let's leave that for another time. If that's okay. An extension I built upon to provide intelligence based on metadata. Oh, nice, static, excellent. I do like that. Yes, this is one of the beautiful things about metadata. It's sort of there to provide help to the consumers, right? So that's a really nice use case. Anyway, let's just have a look at this now. I think, is that okay, Jodelle? I hope it's okay. We'll talk about that another time. So now we've got this established, right? And in my in this trial account, I've got an application. I've got some service instances. In fact, let's look at the application first, right? There's the application, and this application, right, has where is it? Bindings to a connectivity service, a destination service, and also an XSUAA service, just for authentication and everything. But this application is a super simple application, also defined, right? Also defined in this thing here, establish a destination in SAP Cloud Platform, right? It's here. It's defined in here. There it is. Whoop, package JSON. Da, da, da. You also, I can't update this repo because it's in the SAP archive, it's read only, but you will need to get rid of the .npmrc because that points to the old npm.sap.com for the app router package. So get rid of this if you're going to deploy it, which I've done. Okay, that's that. Now, if we go here, right, we're on BTP, we're on SAP BTP. This is an app running on SAP BTP. It's just an app router that'll just do routing, reverse proxy, and it will connect to, because where is it? Because of the wonderful things he does. Establish a destination, and here's the app. Oh, here we are. Here's the app, desk test app. We've got this xsapp.json, which defines anything that comes in. Just redirect it to the destination called shop info. And where's the shop info defined? Let's have a look here. Hope this is making sense. Destination. I've defined a destination called shop info, right? Shop info. Again, this is all described in the repo for the workflow code jam. It's in the SAP archive thing. I've defined it as type HTTP as opposed to mail or LDAP or RFC. There's that for you there, Jodelle. And I've given it the URL which points to virtual for ES5 8000. Where the hell's that? That is through the Cloud Connector, the on-premise proxy type, as opposed to internet. And if I had multiple Cloud Connectors, then I could specify for the second, third, fourth, and nth Cloud Connector a specific location ID so that you can distinguish between different Cloud Connectors, right? But if you don't have a location ID, it's going to use the default one, this Cloud Connector that's connected here, and it will go down that Cloud Connector and actually via the definition here, allow that through on the allow list to the backend system. And that's why we've got access to this OData service, right? Which is the EPM ref app, or is it? EPM ref app shop service. There we go. And we've got that there. So if we say here, for example, suppliers, there we go. You get the suppliers. Look at that. It's like looking into the past. Nice old-fashioned V2 OData service with an XML, an Atom XML representation of the entity set resource. Oh, so nice. So nice to see. Feed entry showing its Atom origins, Anyway, right, so does that make sense? Oh, and Pavan, how global cloud connectors will be maintaining productive systems. That's a good, maybe shall we do a back to basics on cloud connectors? Is that worth doing? Let me know. RFC protocol use case would be great, looking forward to it. Maybe I'll get somebody like Rich to come on and talk about RFCs as well. Rich Hyman, yeah, that'd be cool. Okay, cool, right, anyway. Let's spend the now 25 minutes left talking about annotations, if that's okay, because I want to wrap this. He is a legend. Rich is a legend. Igor, welcome, Igor. So now, let's spend the last 25 minutes talking about annotations, because there's a ton to know about annotations, and it's a wonderfully beautiful thing, right? And if it helps, hopefully it helps. Let me close this one now, close issue, we've done that one. So the only issue outstanding is annotations. Now what I've done in looking into what I want to show you is I found myself diving into multiple rabbit holes when I was reading the OData specification on annotations. So I've got this document and it sort of describes in detail all that I'm going to say in the next 25 minutes and a lot more. Okay, so you can dig into this. This is this README here. Good morning, Visas. Good morning and welcome. And good morning. Yes, good morning. So, you know, if you want to have a look at this over the weekend or over the next few weeks and everything, because I'm not going to say it's easy reading. I think it's interesting reading. Sorry, I'm not going to say it's quick reading. It's hopefully easy reading, but just take your time and go through it. Okay, it talks about all things annotations and how they work and what they are and everything. Hopefully. So Flatline says, if you also include proxy middleware configs also in UI5 tooling, oh my goodness me, so many things to talk about. I'll have to do some planning. Planning? Yeah, I think I can spell the word planning. Anyway, let's look at annotations. So what are annotations? Annotations, well, let's just look at them by looking at what we see here. So we've got, we'll do that. Okay, we've got here, let's open up a new thing and let's go and have a look. In fact, let's remind ourselves, right? We don't need that anymore. We don't need that. We don't really need that. So let's go to 4004, localhost 4004. Okay. Where are annotations? Annotations are in the metadata, okay? So we talked about OData metadata at the start of this live stream episode, right? And that was to do with sort of metadata delivered in the responses, in the resources, in the entity set resources, for example, right? To give you the context of what the entities were and give you the types of the complex structures complex types that we use and everything. What we're talking about here is the actual OData service metadata, the metadata document, the EDMX, right? Which we've seen before. So we can see here, we'll just stare at this for a second. We've got basically, we'll just move that. Oh, that's really helpful. It doesn't collapse very much. We've got here entity containers, we've got entity sets, books, authors, orders, countries, texts, right? Countries and countries texts come from somewhere secret, but we'll talk about that maybe another time when we do some UI, some CAP stuff. Then we have the entity types. There's books, and book's got an ID and a title and stock, and it's got a navigation property to author. This is all defined super simply in here we go, in this bookshop app that I've again copied across from another old code jam that I used to do, right? So it's in this OData Basics hands-on SAP Dev in the annotations branch, and it's in a directory called Bookshop. And of course, as you know, or as you may know, a CAP application exists in the form of like the persistence layer definition, the DB, the schema. Okay, look at the schema here. We can see, look at that beautiful color coding. CAP CDS is now an official language on GitHub. That's where we get color coding. So we've got books, we've got authors, we've got orders, we've got associations between books and authors. And that's why we see here, there's this navigation property author goes to the catalog service authors thing, right? Partner books, etc. We've got the authors, and there's a navigation property to the books, what books the author wrote. And of course, it's a one-to-many, in this case, a collection, and so on, right? We know all this already. If we go down, we see more entity type definition. In fact, let's just collapse this stuff here. Entity type books, entity type authors, orders, countries text. And then the rest of the metadata is all this stuff. There's more metadata than there's more annotations than anything else, right? Let's start with a really simple one. Let's start with a simple one in terms of a definition. So if we go into here, in our sort of schema level, in our sort of persistence layer schema, we don't have, we could put some annotations, but it makes a lot more sense to me to have annotations at the service layer level, okay? And as you can see here, let's go into this one, this service.cds. And again, this is not about CAP itself, but CAP is super useful tool for so many different things. So I'm using this to demonstrate some annotations, and CAP allows us to annotate the data, the metadata, with these annotations which start with an @ sign. And the read-only sort of explodes into multiple OData annotations, okay, that describe the fact that the entity set that's being annotated, or the entity that's been annotated, order info, is not updatable, creatable, or deletable, right? And that's where we see order. Oh, actually, it's not in this one, is it? It's going to be in the stats metadata, because this is in the service stats thing here, right? In the stats metadata, we can see we've got an order info entity type, which has got an ID and a quantity. That's it, right? There. And this at read only sort of expands into an annotation or a set of annotations that have a target of the order info entity type within the entity container, the stats entity container, as in this order info here. And it's saying basically, using the capabilities vocabulary, check this out, right? OData vocabularies, capabilities there. Introducing capabilities, here we go. That'll do, the standards document. This is all linked to in that big document that I wrote. But you can see here, you've got core vocabulary, capabilities vocabulary, measures, validation, aggregation, authorization. So if we look at the capabilities vocabulary, we'll see all these different terms. So a vocabulary is a collection of terms, and each term has a type. It might be a primitive type like string, or integer or something, or it might be a complex type. It might be a complex type like a record, a multiple values, multiple properties with values, or it might be a container, a collection of of types. Here, the capabilities vocabulary provides a way for service authors to describe certain capabilities of an OData service. So if we now look here, not here, here we can see capabilities.delete restrictions. Delete restrictions, there, delete restrictions has a delete restrictions type of delete restrictions type, and it's described as restrictions on delete operations. Delete restrictions type, deletable is Boolean, and that's the most important property within the delete restrictions type. Okay, so if we see here, annotation, term, capabilities, delete restrictions, record, there's a record, i.e., if you have a look at this, in fact, let's put them side to side. If we go back here, we can see, and again, this is described in that document, but the capabilities vocabulary, okay, has a number of terms. And there's a term called delete restrictions. Where is it? Delete restrictions. What type does this term have? It has a type of delete restrictions type. So this is a complex type. So it's a record, right? And this complex type has multiple properties, each of which themselves have types, right? So a complex type is known as a record in annotation, OData annotation terms, which sort of makes sense. Like a record is a series of properties. And that's why we see here, record type equals capabilities.delete restrictions type, delete restrictions type. And then the only property that has a value in this particular annotation that's been generated by this @read-only is a property value, property deletable, Boolean false, as in it's not deletable. And in the same way, there's an insert restrictions term which has an insert restrictions type which has very, very similar properties. So you can see insertable false, updatable false. Now, this is metadata. This is metadata. This is annotated metadata. So does this mean that this is just in theory? This is like, what we would like you, how we would like you to treat our data, dear consumer, in terms of the service implementation. That's down to the service implementation, right? But CAP does the right thing. If we're talking CAP here, CAP does the right thing and actually prevent deletes, inserts, and updates to those entity types that have been defined with these annotations, defined with this read-only. Hey, Nico, good morning. Good morning. Flatline, any specific middleware for you? Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you for doing that. So, just to show, right, we've got this running here in CDS Watch. Just to show, let me get rid of that read-only. And I'm going to save that. In fact, yeah, save that, write that, and you can see I'm using Watch, so the cap service is going to restart. If I go back here now and refresh, right, this metadata, the annotations disappear because I've deleted the at read only. So let me bring you back in again, right? Let's write that again. Watch for the service to restart. Go back here and refresh. They're back there again. So these annotations in the CDS cause annotation elements in the metadata to appear, right? How are we doing for time? 46, perfect, perfect. Let's try curl local host 4004 stats order info. Okay, let's just have that a bit neater. JQ. There we go. So we get, right? This. What we're doing here is just order info. We're getting that information, right? These are the sort of orders that I've placed. And if you clone the repo, go into the bookshop directory and start it running, you'll see. Where are we? You'll see in the repo, I've deliberately included in the bookshop the actual bookshop DB. So I've populated it with some books and I've populated it with some orders, just these 3 orders, right? So, you've got the SQLite thing there. So it's all there for you to sort of have a look at. So these orders will be there when you clone the repo and run the bookshop, right? So now I'm going to say curl, let's do that again, x delete, use the delete method, right? And then, of course, I need to specify an ID to delete. So I'm going to go up here and, oops, grab that one. There. Now, what do you think is going to happen? Let's do that again with a curl parameter, an option to say, give me the response headers, HTTP 1.1 405 method not allowed, and we get we get error code here as well, right? 405 entity stats order is read only because look at the annotations, right? So these annotations, these read only annotations, for example, they really mean what they say. Okay. So that's a really simple example of an annotation, where the annotations come from, how you can define them, where they appear, what they mean, how to sort of read them as well, right? So, reading annotations, let's go back here, reading annotations, I don't know about you, but when I first started looking at annotations, my eyes were like, what? If you take your time and you read that document that I've written, hopefully, you'd be able to see, yeah, this is all calm and collected because you have this annotations element that is like a container for all the annotation elements within, and the annotations plural element defines the target of the contained annotations within, right? Let's go back and have a look at the metadata for the catalog service. But before we do, let's go into here and have a look at the relevant CDS that describes, well, actually it doesn't describe the catalog service, right? If we have a look at, in fact, using from /service, let's go out of here, /service is that. There's our catalog service here, right? Catalog service has got books, authors, and orders. All beautifully simple, just projections, books, authors, and orders, entity sets, projections on those types there, right? No annotations. Instead, the annotations are defined in a different CDS file that points to catalog service books. So the CDS is a beautiful language, right? So we can sort of write the annotations in CAP. And I'm not saying you can only do annotations for OData in CAP, but it's a super simple way of doing it, right? If you want to build an OData service with annotations. So I'm saying here, or this CDS is saying here, I want to add the following annotations. And again, this syntax here with the at open brackets and then UI colon open curly brace, open square bracket, open curly brace. All this is described in loving detail in this README here. Okay, once you've read this README, you'll be able to also read how these things are described, yeah, and how to sort of look. There we go. What's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? How does it work? UI, everything. Look at this here. This is how to sort of parse in your brain all these different terms, right? But very simply, you can see, or once you read the document, you'll be able to see that this is a collection of annotations. This collection of annotations is a collection of terms, and the terms, because of the way it's structured here, it's like a map, right? All belong, there's an identification term, selection fields term, line item term, and header info term. They all belong to the UI vocabulary. UI vocabulary, we didn't see that in the OData specifications because UI vocab, here we go, because the UI vocabulary is a vocabulary that SAP have created. Okay, the SAP UI vocabulary aims to optimize usage of data in UI channels. I like the word channel there; it's quite cool. You know, it makes me feel intelligent. Okay, so in the UI vocabulary collection of terms, you have a number of terms: header info, identification, badge, line item, blah, 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 right? So if we have a look here again, identification, selection fields, line item, header info. These are all terms in the UI vocabulary. Let's look at a simple one, right? Selection fields. Let's go to the selection fields. Selection fields, there we go. Selection fields is a term. And the type is really interesting. The type, why isn't the type clickable? Because the type is like a flat, simple, primitive type property path. It's the path to a property in your OData service, right? In your entity. But it's not just that. It's also got these square brackets around it. It means it's a collection of, right? A list of properties, potentially. Have one, have more. Selection fields. And you can see, this is so wonderful. Once you take some time to look at the machine readable definitive definition of all these different terms and the types, you'll see that the terms themselves are annotated. So these annotations are annotated, rabbit holes all the way down. And some of the terms as well, criticality labels, have collections of types, criticality label type, which is described here using standard OData metadata as a complex type. It's beautiful. So just take your time to understand how all this works, and hopefully you'll feel better about it. So selection fields, let's go back again. Selection fields, where is it going? So anyway, it doesn't matter. Selection fields is a list, a collection. Oh yeah, in fact, let's do that again. Selection fields is a collection of property paths, right? Now, with that in mind, let's stare for a second at this line. We can see that the value of the selection fields term in this thing here, UI colon open curly brackets, that's the same as saying UI dot selection fields, right? Etc. Right? That's the same as doing that. This is a collection of one property path. Title. Title, what's title? Title, of course, is let's go back here. Title is a property in the book's entity type, right? That we're describing, that we're annotating. Let's go back here again. Go back to the serve. There it is there. Oh, not there, sorry. Where is it? Index, there. annotate catalog service books. So any property path is, relative to this, entity type, right? So it's the value of the selection fields term in the UI vocabulary is a list of a single property path title, which is, one of the properties of the books entity. Now let's have a look at what that does. In fact, yeah, let's do that. Let's go here. Let's open up the metadata. And shall we search for it or shall we look for it? Why don't we, what time is it? 50, oh my goodness, 55. Let's search for it. Selection fields. Selection fields, there's only one instance of selection fields. There it is. There's the annotation. But what's my parent annotation? As in, I'm an annotation. This is an annotation singular element, XML elements. So it's got to belong within an annotations, plural, container element that describes the target of that annotation. So there, look, so this annotation here lives in the context of this. So this annotation here has the target of catalog service books, which makes sense because that's what we said, right? And also, we know it's a collection because it's got these square brackets around it. In the definition here, select fields. I'm not in the right place. Oh, I'm in the wrong one. Where are we? Vocabularies. There we go. Right. We know it's a collection, right? Because it's got these square brackets around it. I wanted to go back to the UI.md. Go there. Straight there. MD. Right. Selection fields. Where is it? Selection fields. Got square brackets around it. So it's a collection. That's why we see the element collection of property paths title. What effect does that have? If we go here, let's open up this in a separate thing here and go to the Fiori preview, right, of the books entity set. We get, and let's make that full screen for a second, we get, and if you read the definition of what these selection fields UI element UI term is used for in Fiori elements, it's used to provide or to define what selection fields beyond this actual search appear. Title. So why don't we, as a final thing, add, I don't know, books has got stock, right? Stock. Nothing. Let's have a look at stock. Let's go here. Go here, books, stock. Yeah, stock. Okay. Let's add stock to the list of property paths in the collection that is the value for this UI.selection fields annotation, right? So that's restarted. Yeah, cool. So if we go here, I'm just going to refresh this. In fact, no, first of all, I'm going to go here and refresh this. Selection field. Now we've got two children in the collection for this annotation. So hopefully when we refresh this, we not only get title, we get stock. Okay, so that's how these annotations are defined. That's how they appear in the metadata. Okay, it's not as scary as you think, is it? Right? And that's how they can, for example, by the wonderful Fiori elements, that's how they can be used. The Fiori elements app floor plan mechanisms look at the metadata. I've been talking so much, I've just realised I've not been looking at the chat because the chat's right over there as well, sorry. The OData metadata, they look at the metadata, they look at the annotations, and the annotations give the Fiori elements knowledge about how to form themselves in terms of, list reports and object pages, right? Again, if I click on a Jane Eyre, for example, click the item, why have we got that information there, right? Jane Eyre is the title of the book, and Charlotte Bronte obviously is the author of the book. If we have a look here, as a final thing, header info, the header info term describes annotation, or is an annotation term that describes what should be in the header of things. And we can see title is the title of the book, and the description, which is this smaller thing under here, is actually, we're just sort of hacking that a little bit to put the author name, right? And that's really cool as well in CDS. You can actually specify, through the navigation property, through the association, you know, a property of a different entity type. Anyway, it's 9 o'clock. Hopefully that's okay. So thank you everybody for joining, and thank you for staying with me on this little journey of discovery of OData back to basics. Some great suggestions on what to do next. Maybe I'll do curl. Maybe I'll first of all as a little sort of, you know, interstitial thing, as a single episode. I don't know, and then we'll do something else. So thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for joining. It's 9 o'clock, so I'm going to end here. And yeah, I'll see you soon. I'll see you. I think I'm around next week. Yeah, see you next week. Bye.